All right, I'm going to kick it off with some introductions. So, hi everyone, I am Kara Lecklider. I am BCBA and Director of Sales at Motivity, and I am located in Massachusetts. So, we actually have people from all over today. So, let's start by introducing our panelists. And when I pass it over to you, I would like you to introduce yourself. Tell us where you're from, tell us a little bit about your practice, and tell us what, as an ABA leader, really keeps you up at night. So, Amy, I'm going to start with you.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Amy Legan. I'm currently a practice owner in the interior of Alaska, like right smack in the middle of the state. I'm originally from California. I started back in the field in around 2006 and have been practicing as a BCBA since 2013 across lots of different settings. My practice in Alaska provides clinic and school-based programming. We provide early intervention in that clinic-based program. And then we serve as a consulting agency with the state of Alaska through the Complex Behavior Collaborative. And through that, we're able to serve clients through the lifespan and across different diagnoses. So that's a really cool program. It was really hard to narrow down the number one thing that keeps me up at night, because I'm sure we can all attest that it is so many things. But I think the number one in my mind is, as being an ABA practice owner and clinician, how do I support guiding the field to stay rooted in science and data, and also balance clinical practice management and the advocacy efforts that go into supporting our field in the right direction.
Ooh, that's a really good one. And
Right.
anyone
One of
who's
many.
yeah, but yeah, that's really good. And anyone who's attending now in the chat, please feel free, if anything resonates with you or if you have your own thoughts, please add them in. We want this to be interactive because, as Amy mentioned, there are a lot of things for us all in this field to be thinking about. All right, Lily and Susan, I'll pass it over to you.
Hi, I'm Lily. I am a BCBA and co-owner of Supersonic ABA. I'm from Ohio, and our clinic is located in Ohio as well.
Yeah, we're located in the Cleveland area. Oh, sorry, I'm Susan, also BCBA, and we have our titles as CEO just to be fun. Um, so yes, we're located close to Cleveland. What are we, like 10, 15 minutes outside of Cleveland? We're in the western suburbs, I guess. But we love our clinic, and the biggest thing for me, I think, that keeps me up at night is creating the brand and keeping the brand of who Supersonic is, because I feel like a lot of ABA clinics don't have like this personality or I don't know how else to explain, like a
Like,
personality, just
yeah.
brand. So we try to keep that 100% in every little aspect. I mean, down to the T of like what our clinic looks like.
And maintaining that culture
Yes.
among our staff.
Well, I think you're doing an awesome job because look behind you at your office. My goodness gracious, the coolest thing I've ever seen.
You're welcome to visit anytime.
I love it. All right, and Madi, I'll pass it over to you. Give us a little introduction and what keeps you up at night.
So hello, my name is Madi Cerda, and I am a BCBA. I am in Texas. We jokingly call it the armpit of Texas, Lubbock. Most people recognize it for the university, Texas Tech. There's not much around. I got into this field, gosh, I think I was introduced to it back in 2003, so I'm going to date myself. I think it was before there really was the certification process. I met a behavior analyst as a special ed teacher. I started teaching in 2003 and really fell in love with the way this individual taught me the principles. And so spent about, gosh, finally left the classroom in 2017, became a consultant for teachers in Texas. We have region centers where teachers go to get continuing education. So did that. And then in 2018, made the crazy decision to go back and get my PhD. And then started both the clinic and a nonprofit, the Leap Institute, in 2021 and graduated in 2021. And so I think the thing that really keeps me up at night, aside from delayed insurance claim payments, um, everybody's like, yes,
I'm with you there.
is a lot of the work that I do. I feel like I have kind of two faces. Where I live in Texas is very conservative and it's very far behind as far as education and even just the practices of applied behavior analysis and the implementation of it. So I feel like I have that, business face, kind of like what Lily and her business partner were saying, Susan, sorry. And also I have like a very big kind of advocacy platform that I try to keep very separate. And so one of the things that really keeps me up at night is, with everything that's kind of happened since 2021 with ABA and the autistic community really, starting to speak out, was I didn't want to try to do something crazy like start a revolution. I just wanted to build a model, and it be a model that people can see that, okay, compassion, cultural safety, all of these things can exist within this discipline and they don't have to be, outside of, or it doesn't have to be devoid of that. And so one of the things that really keeps me up at night is just, self-reflecting on like, okay, did we do that? Did we live up to the values of Lighthouse? Did we, as from business owner from the very top down to, the person that, comes in to clean, did they feel the values being, embodied by every person that they encountered? I think that's probably the thing that keeps me up at night is like, am I doing this right? Kind of like when you become a parent, right? You're like, am I doing the mom thing right? I don't know. There's no manual for this. So yeah.
That's wonderful. And you just hit the nail on the head about one thing that keeps me up at night, which is always wondering, did I do the right thing for my kids? And also at work. So that's amazing. All right. So it's clear that you all come from really interesting and diverse backgrounds. And there are some common threads in the challenges that you face. And I know that there are a lot really right now in the industry that are resonating across many, many ABA business leaders. And the way that I thought about this discussion was really to touch upon some of those today and talk about how you're utilizing technology to help you. So we're going to start talking about these main points in the context of how you can utilize technology as your ally. So looking at things like staff retention, audit readiness, scaling your practice while also maintaining that clinical integrity and doing the right thing and making the right decisions. And then we'll just look overall at the role of technology in ABA, future-proofing your practice, and then maybe leaving our audience with a couple things that you have learned as a leader. All right. I am going to kick off this discussion by directing the first question to Madi. So retention tends to be one of the biggest challenges in the field, with burnout really topping the list. Let's discuss ways how technology can help create a more supportive environment for your staff. What are some things that you have found in your own practice?
I think looking at technology, the way that we do for our learners, right? It's another way of communicating. We have various ways in which we're able to communicate needs and wants. And some people are comfortable with spoken language. Some people are comfortable with, text or chat, So I think utilizing technology and almost kind of creating a buffet of options of the ways in which your staff know that you're accessible to them. Because even as a business owner, I've always had this open door policy, even as we've grown, that my staff knows that if there's something really big, like I'm a text away, a chat away, a knock on the door. And so I think utilizing technology to really expand on how the staff can find ways to communicate those needs and wants can help to align with the values that we have, right? We're really big, when I'm interviewing people, it's like, okay, where is on a scale of 1 to 10, where is your mental health and well-being? Like, where is your burnout level? Because we get people that are coming in and they've come from another clinic and it's very apparent that the burnout is there. but people also have to work. And so, starting that professional relationship and then using technology in ways that, they were not always the best at saying like, I need help or I'm burning out, right? Like that's hard for us because we're in the helping field and we want to be doing that, even to the detriment of ourselves. So utilizing technology for communication, utilizing it for check-ins, whether it's a self check-in, with a Google form or a form that they send to me or to my work culture and advocacy, admin staff, where they always feel like there's just this way to get those needs met. And if not, again, utilizing technology for transparency. As business owners, we have to make really hard decisions. And I think without transparency and utilizing technology to keep people in the loop where, maybe at, certain places, like you don't know what's going on in the admin world and you just know that a really cruddy decision was made and you don't understand it. And I think, having technology that helps everyone to know what's going on really allows for, that qualitative side of like giving grace. And so technology is beautiful because it offers that quantitative piece, right? It's the very black and white, whether you have, Motivity for your data collection that you can look at it, whether you use Google Sheets, whatever technology you're using, it really can help solidify the qualitative parts of the values that, your clinic exists within. And so I think it's really critical that, we utilize technology in that way, so that people are feeling seen and heard, even if it's not like this face-to-face.
Yeah, that's really true. Amy, I'll pass it to you. Anything to add to that?
I would just add that I resonate with everything she said, and we are trying to bring as much technology into our clinical practice as we can, but not just with the implementation of programming, but things that make the running the business more efficient. And I am a practice owner and a parent, and I live in a rural Alaska. There's just kind of a lot on my plate all the time, and I can't be physically present for every person for all their needs all the time. And so using technology, like Marty was just saying, it helps me to understand where my team is at and what their needs are in the moment, and then how to prioritize what I have on my plate for that hour or that day. And we love the anonymous check-ins with staff so we can kind of get an overall feel of how's everyone feeling? Where's the burnout level? And then they can provide feedback anonymously to us about any ideas they have, or really just how they're feeling, if they need extra face-to-face time with us that week. So just all these different creative ways that you can use technology to communicate with your teams. We change the check-in form every month even. So we just have to utilize this to make sure that our people are cared for. It really helps with retention when they are have an avenue for providing feedback anytime in a way that makes sense for them, because we all like to receive feedback differently. We all like to provide feedback differently. As a practice owner, you have to adapt to all of those styles. And technology affords us that opportunity, I think. So even if it's not their preference to use a Google form, they use the Google form to say, I want to sit in your office and talk to you face to face. And then I'm able to accommodate that. So I just love bridging technology into our practice in all these different areas, not just the clinical practice portion of it. So I just really resonated with everything she said, and we're kind of doing the same things.
That's great. And it's so interesting because technology is with us at every point of the day, right? Like you're constantly dealing with technology. Like just before this webinar, I know that Lily and Susan were trying to get the TV set up properly, and it's constant. And I think one of the things that really I've been reflecting on is, as a frontline staff in this field, you're constantly walking around with technology, right? Like you're collecting your data, your whatever it might be. So Lily and Susan, I'll pass this over to you, but how can you make sure that the technology is actually serving your staff? And do you see any differences in like when you find that key technology that's allowing them to get through their day-to-day in such a way that it's not frustrating but actually helping? And how do you kind of measure that if it's doing what it's supposed to?
I guess just by getting that feedback from staff, which we have never had a complaint in regard to Motivity and data collection. A lot of our technicians come in and they've not used Motivity and they pick it up within like a day. Like it's just so seamless and it's very straightforward to use. And we always tell them like our billing notes are gonna be a lot easier than you're previously used
And they
to.
never
And they
believe
don't
us.
believe us. And then after they're like, wait, this is the note? Like this is it? So it's really helped in that aspect because other places we've worked at, like it would just take forever or it would log you out when you're doing a note and stuff like that. So the fact that it will save if you are like kicked out or anything is so huge, like to our staff.
That's
Yes.
awesome. Oh, go ahead, Susan.
All right. In general, we have like a Teams like group chat, and it's funny because we actually have a group chat for work hours and a group chat for like after work hours. So we know that the girls love talking to each other and like us in the conversation. And we all have little stickers and like emojis that we all know who is who and stuff. So that's really neat. And then the other piece that kind of piggybacks off of Amy and Meredy is we have a Teams chat also with our each of our families with all of our texts on it. And so it creates this connection and communication that like is really tough to get if you don't get to see everybody every single day or work with a person or a parent's child, or sorry, a specific child. So literally everybody in the building knows every parent, grandparent, and it's a very like cool community that we have like created here.
Love that. It is amazing how, I mean, Motivity is a completely remote culture and we all interact through technology every day. And we just had our holiday celebration yesterday, and it's really awesome how you can leverage that to create those connections. That's super cool. All right, Lily, you started talking about session notes, so I'm going to direct this next question to you. I'm going to switch topics here. We're going to go into audit readiness and compliance, some very exciting topics. So we all know that audits can be stressful, but with the right tools, you can stay prepared. So how have you utilized technology and put processes in place to simplify audit readiness and really ensure that in the case of an audit, you can get as much sleep as possible and not have to, stay up all hours of the night?
I'm gonna give this to Susan. This is more of a Susan question for our business.
Yeah, she does a lot of the clinical stuff. So we already know our clinical is really, really good, but to have it in one platform and then to have it match up with Aloha and then match with our payroll, it's so seamless that we know that we're ready for anything at any time because everything is reflected on the day and the time, and it's very like time stamped and very ready to go. So technology has helped us a lot to just have everything be cohesive, and it's easier to explain that to our staff too. So everything just works together and we're just like thankful for it because man, I remember some past jobs where it was not like that. So yeah.
What would you say are the key differences thinking back to the past experiences?
Oh my God.
I'm so
Having to
curious.
use like a calculator and like paper and like spreadsheets and putting that together in a different file and not having everything in one place to be able to like seamlessly organize. I'm a very like avid organizer in terms of like our files and stuff. But I mean, back in the day, it was like, ugh. And it was tough. If one person doesn't follow the same organization, then it's a mess. So like as business owners, we know that we're going to be like, no, it has to be done this way. So it's easier for us to find certain things at certain times. Because sometimes time is not on our side, especially if we're thinking about audits. So I feel like we're prepared for it. And I've been through a few, so I'm not really intimidated by them, but now I know how to set us up for success from the mistakes that we've had before.
Awesome. Amy, I'll pass it over to you. Anything to add to that?
Motivity, we also use Aloha in connection with Motivity. So honestly, in terms of, we get audited all the time. I don't know if it's because we work with TRICARE or what, but um, we go through audits really frequently. And I just would kind of piggyback what she was just saying of audits are just audits. Like they really don't keep me up at night, if I'm honest. And that's just because Motivity has so many options for us to make sure that we're ready going into it. It's really just a matter of faxing over what they want. We have several levels of approvals in our session notes. So some of the basic administrative portions to ensure that the times and the dates and everything align, that there's signatures where there should be. And then we have a quality audit approval level where we make sure that they have accurately depicted what took place in the session, that they're using appropriate and, measurable language. And, all of that combined with the really kind of thorough and ongoing training we do for session notes makes us totally prepared. So technology in this way, especially coming from, I started writing session notes myself in, 18 years ago, like they just, we kept binders. It's just night and day difference. And if I'm really honest, because I've been doing this so long, it's taken me longer than some to get on the technology train because I trust paper and pen. It's never failed me. It's messy and it takes a lot of filing, but it's never disappeared. And I have used other platforms where I've had session notes disappeared and data, all kinds of things. So when I found Motivity and worked with Aloha together and, really learned how to use both systems to my benefit, audits become a non-issue, really. It's all there. You just have to send it over. And if you've trained your team right, it's also the quality that, they would expect from you. So yeah, I think technology has solved this problem for me for the most part.
That's great. And in your case, it's finding the right technology that
it was. I've been through a handful of them in my days.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that that Susan, you pointed out as well is really that back end work, that when you have everything set up and supported on a system, then moving forward, you could just run through day-to-day operations and you're not constantly worried about the what ifs. So it sounds like, Amy, you're utilizing the approval workflow in a really unique way where you do have that quality assurance check built into the session note approval. And that's something I love that about Motivity, because not only are you setting up that template to already meet those payer requirements, but you're able to put on the back end of that template that process where you have multiple people getting eyes on it and giving the okay and sending it back to the session note writer if there needs to be an edit.
Yeah.
Madi, I'm curious to hear your experience. Anything to add?
No, I mean, I completely agree with, the previous responses. I love that Motivity has kind of built-in safety features too, right? Like if a Motivity session note is started, at a different time, then whatever your, CRM system is, we use Therapy PM. It has that yellow little circle instead of the green, and it's just such a nice visual piece. I'm a very visual person, so to see that immediately, it's like, oh, okay, something needs to be fixed somewhere. I think having those kind of built-in safety features with Motivity is such a huge, help. And we also have processes in place where we have admin whose job is to essentially act as either the insurance or the auditor, right? Like if it's for authorizations. So having those people kind of role play and be that bad guy, so to speak, and teaching them the very kind of black and white, like this is what it needs to look like. This is what it needs to. So every now and then I want you to randomly go through and pull, 8 or 9 session notes and go through them as an auditor would, and then give us the feedback. So I think that also makes it easier for when that time comes and it's like the real deal. You feel like you've been rehearsing and practicing and also making sure that that quality is there. So that when it really does happen, you're kind of like, okay, cool. Like we've been practicing and getting ready for this. So, and it also helps our admin to understand, because a lot of times they're not always familiar with that kind of bridge between that clinical and the admin piece of it. So understanding what needs to be in the note and understanding the importance of, how the data should look, and how the note template. I also love that Motivity lets you make these note templates, because, my techs having to just get to go and like do check boxes and click downs and, as little response effort as possible, I think is what makes it so amazing for them. And they're just really excited. And it also kind of measures that quality of control and standardizes it, right? Like I don't have to worry about so-and-so's note looking completely different from so-and-so's note because we've already put like the meat of it in, and there's just components that they have to add that is unique to their session. So I think that is really, really helpful. But yeah, that's kind of what we do.
All right, next topic that we're going to talk about. I hear this one a lot, and this one came up a lot at the most recent CASP conference, is scaling with clinical integrity. So you're kind of dealing with two things. You want to maintain, Susan and Lily already talked about it. You want to maintain this brand and this idea and the type of care that you provide. And Madi talked about that as well. But then also as a business owner, of course, you're always going to be looking at how can I bring on new clients? How can I increase the size of my business, but still provide the same quality services to every learner, every client that's coming into my practice? So I'm going to start off with Lily and Susan. What are some ways that you have used technology to maintain that balancing act of bringing in new clients, but making sure that everyone is receiving that same standard of care?
Gotta think about that one. We are still very small if you like want to like think about in terms of like relativity and like scale. We have 12 clients in total. So we are very grassroots, hit the pavement, talking to parents, doing events to get clients in. And we went from 2 kids to 12. So
This
in this
year.
year. So
Yeah.
we're still very like little, but it's big for us,
Yeah.
because we want to stay grassroots and tiny. Tiny-ish, we'll say. So for us, I don't think we're at that point yet to be able to answer that question. Because we're able to know every single parent, every single person that walks through the door, even people that come and just meet us out at events or that come in just for inquiries or things like that. So we're able to have that close, like knit, like relationship. But we do think about how that would change when we do get bigger. So love to hear your guys' experience with it.
Amy, do you want to take that one?
Sure. Yeah. I think years worth of data is on my side with this because my strategy really, when I was starting out, was to be cautious. And I was very particular about wanting to make sure I was providing a high quality, ethical, appropriate, kind service to every family that walked into our building. So I love being a clinician on top of a business owner. So I was in there running sessions, doing all these things, modeling it for the team. And that's kind of how I ensured the quality first. And I set standards for our company. And I just stayed that way until I had a lot more data in a specific area, which is staffing. And we all live in different areas that come with different flows of staffing. Sometimes that comes in waves. And for me, it was just really important to be able to watch what the staffing influx looked like and staffing retention looked like and address any issues in that area, really work on the culture to improve and keep our team. So I would say growing with integrity means using technology and data to make sure that the quality that you started with and that the values you started with don't change, and that you're just slowly able to bring on more clients, and that you're really realistic about how big or small you want to be. I think one of the big mistakes early BCBAs or early owners do is grow too fast, and they lose the quality really quickly. And I'm a person who likes an intimate program. I want to know these people. I want to know the impact. I want to know what their concerns are. I want to know how things are changing or not changing. And so I have to train my team to do and feel the same and to carry those same values. And so using technology for communication with the families and monitoring the flow of staffing is really how I've managed what our growth should look like while maintaining high quality ethical programming.
I love that. Madi, I'll pass it over to you for your input.
So I can't speak for, every small clinic owner, or medium-sized clinic owner, but I think, at least for me, one of the reasons why I even did this was to be different. And one of the big kind of self-reflection pieces was asking myself, like, where is big enough, right? Because I don't want to become so large that I'm across 50 states. And you know what I mean? Like, that's never been what my values led me to do. So I think that's probably one of the very first things, as a potential business owner, is that you sit with yourself and ask yourself, like, when is enough enough? Is it really about quality at that point? Or is it, is it driven by something else? Or the values something else, which is fine. But I think it's really important that, you kind of reflect on, where do I want to stop? And for me, it's kind of the same thing. Right now, we kind of go between like 18 to 22 learners, and I don't really want to get any bigger. That's hard because we do have a very significant amount of underserved families. We're probably the only clinic that accepts Medicaid, probably within a 200 to 300 mile radius. So that also kind of pulls at those values too. But then also from a business perspective, if you're not familiar with pro forma reports, you've got to learn how to build those out in Excel spreadsheets. And essentially what that does is it tells you kind of like the cost versus efficiency of every person on your team, like down to the penny. How much is it costing you versus how much, are they bringing in with their work? And it just kind of lines everything out. And I mean, it can be a pretty intimidating, spreadsheet to build and look at, but as a business owner, you don't want to start handing off things to like an accountant, to people, and then you have no idea what you have and what you don't have. And I think for us too, when we hire somebody new, they have 30 days of onboarding. We don't do just 40 hours and then here's your tablet and here's your list of clients. It's 30 days of doing the modules, doing shadowing, separately learning how to use the tablet, separately learning how to take data, separately learning how to work Motivity, right? Like, these are all components that, just in my experience, previously, that wasn't what I received. And so getting just kind of that bare minimum, I mean, if you sit back and think about it, 40 hours before you're kind of just thrown out into the wild to do intensive therapy is just not, that again was something that, aligning with my values, when I bring someone on board, I want them to be like itching to jump out and us be like, hold on, we've got more to teach. I want you to observe more. I want you to, so we would gradually release, with 15-minute, session, 45-minute session, and then finally to their full blown, and then doing, feedback and conversation or meetings after that. So for me, scaling is, I already have the boundary set. And I think small business owners need to really sit with that, because the temptation can come, but with dollar signs comes bigger problems, right? And bigger things that you have to try to juggle. And to me, it's just not worth it.
Yeah. I would add one more thing to that, if it's okay.
Go
Just,
ahead.
using the Proform and Excel, a little overwhelming, but it really helps with all the other pieces of scaling and growth, because we have to consider, do we want to add an additional health benefit or a wellness benefit of some kind? Or, what are we doing with paid time off or sick time? And, in Alaska, some of those things are changing right now in terms of what's required of small business owners. And so knowing that cost benefit analysis of what it's costing you to have an employee versus what they're bringing into the business, and considering if you want to grow a benefits package and to continue to add to improved retention before just adding more and more clients. I think this is a really interesting place to sit as a business owner who's also a clinician, because we all got into this field because we have these giant bursting hearts that want to serve especially underserved areas. We're the only clinic, or there are 2 clinics within like 600 miles of where we live. So you can imagine how underserved, we are. And I want to take every single person when they call. And I do have to battle that feeling in my heart. But I know, kind of as Mari was saying, I decided early on how big I ever wanted to get. And I was totally comfortable with that. And I've never swayed from it. And I think serving all of our kids with a really high quality service and having high staff retention does a better job for the community than me trying to take every kid who then ends up with a lower quality service. So it doesn't always feel great on the heart, but I think someone mentioned earlier, you have to make some tough decisions sometimes. And for me, it's staying rooted in science and improving work culture and benefits packages to improve staff retention, and using, Motivity and technology and all of these things that we can to make sure that we're serving the best we can with what we have.
Yeah, and I feel like part of that too, I have to imagine that by providing the training and support that you are to your RBTs, who then eventually become BCBAs and then eventually go out and provide their own services. So that's another really unique way to think about it, is you're building the future, like future providers, and expanding this network through this model.
That's exactly, someone mentioned earlier, well, my thing that keeps me up at night is how do I guide our field to staying rooted in science and appropriate, science-based implementation of what we do. And that's exactly what Mari was saying, is exactly like my path for this, of improved training, teach these people from the get-go, give them the right amount of support, stop throwing them out to the wolves. We want these kids to be able to focus on their outcomes, and we want these families to come to expect a really high quality service where they're cared for. And so that training is one of the things that we have to be putting more time into. That's the way to guide the field. All 3 of these companies opened because they want to do a better job, and they want to have a model that other people can learn from.
I know I personally was in an experience where I did not necessarily get that support at the very beginning of my career. And I often thank heavens that I had enough in my heart to keep me going. And it makes me happy. Like, there really seems to be this movement toward looking at that type of training and support we're providing at the very beginning of a career in this field, because it's hard. Like, we all know that. Right. I'm going to move a little bit more now to specifically utilizing technology. We know that technology is the backbone of efficient operations. Sometimes it's not really the fun part. Like, Amy, you're talking about sitting and looking at paying for benefits and the cost of running a business. And of course, technology and subscriptions to your data collection and your practice management, that's all part of it. So let's explore how technology really plays a part in that, building that thriving practice. So, Amy, I'll start with you. How have you seen technology transform the way Aspire Behavior Solutions operates? Specifically, when I know you've mentioned that you've used some outdated platforms in the past, and then moving to platforms like Motivity that are really moving forward with the science as well.
Yeah, I mean, I did this motivator spotlight with Motivity recently, and this was sort of one of the questions asked. And when I really sat down to think about this, it was a really simple answer. And Motivity has completely changed our practice. I have used quite a few, maybe all of them at this point, platforms, and I've really struggled to stay away from paper and pen, because what I'm after is reliability, efficiency, and gaining my time back. There are a lot of administrative burdens in this field and particularly in this position. And what I need is to support my team and my families that I serve. What I don't need is to spend 3 hours searching for missing session notes. I don't have time for that. I won't tolerate it. And my team works way too hard developing this session note and collecting this data, which is really their visual support for the work they're doing outside of, the face-to-face with their client. So using Motivity, which has never lost a single piece of data, never lost a session note, everything that I need is customizable to the style of the clinicians that we work with and the style practice we have. I have immediate support anytime I've ever needed it. And I think what Motivity and moving that direction with technology has provided me is trust. And when you're a business owner, you have to learn to find people or programs that you can trust, and you have to invest in them. Because you cannot do it all on your own, even though that's a tough pill to swallow for a control freak like me. But I would say that's what I've gained: reliability, trust, and most importantly, I've gained my time back. I don't have to have all these administrative burdens. I have Motivity behind me, Aloha behind me. My team feels safe. I feel safe. And now we can just focus on the good work.
That makes me really happy to hear. I know that I'll talk to people all the time that because they've been burned by other systems in the past and might have some really poor experiences behind them, they're nervous. They're saying, well, what if this is not as good? I'm just going to go back to paper pencil. Because again, I know paper pencil. I know it's great. I know what to expect. I know what could go wrong. So to hear that you have had such a positive experience and that it's helped you practice.
I was in those shoes though. I've been burned. Yeah. When you go to do an audit and you have 300 session notes that are missing and nobody bothers to help you, that's a really, really tough situation to be in. And, we're all working our butts off to keep these doors open. So I can just plainly say, I don't have time for that. I don't have time for recoupments for work that my team did do. And, it was really hard to make the leap. But after doing as much research as I could, I did it, and I've never looked back, and I never will.
That's awesome. Lily and Susan, I'll pass it over to you. Talk a bit about technology. How's it going?
I mean, I think we agree with everything Amy has said, like just the fact that we can fully trust in the data collection system we're using, because obviously everything is data driven that we do, and it's the core of our practice. So not having to worry if it's accurate or reliable, and also having that everything is customizable, like Amy said as well, is very, very nice. Like you're never like, oh, I wish I could do this, because you just can't.
Yeah. And Amy, I think you put it so well to put it in that word trust, because that's what it is. We don't worry about anything clinical. And that's such a nice thing to say, because that should be, something that keeps you up at night, right? But it doesn't. So we're good.
Yeah.
Madi, how about you? Anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think just technology in general, can go one of two ways. It can isolate us, right? And have us really centering the importance of data, right? We are a data-driven science. We are very much, that is the, the meat and potatoes of what we do. And I really love that with Motivity and technology, the importance of that is taken care of, but it allows us to balance the human side of it, right? Where I tell my techs all the time, like, if you're on a date, you don't want your date like this on their phone, right? Like, if a client is in session with you and they are engaged and they are fully committed, I expect you to be the same. And yes, you've got to put the data in, but we've set it up so easy for you with Motivity that it's, tap, 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 keep going, as opposed to like, you're over here on your tablet, like centering the data versus centering the learner and the session and the goals and the therapeutic rapport. And I think that's the beautiful thing about technology, is that it allows us to get the necessary quantitative pieces, right? But it allows us to then be able to fully express like the humanity side of what we do. Because that is something that we are working to regain trust with, is that we're humans too. We can laugh and have fun, and we can build positive and safe, therapeutic relationships with our learners and their families. And so utilizing technology in that way, as opposed to it then, utilizing it to where it just takes over and there is no humanity, component to it. I think that's a really important thing to always kind of keep in the back of your head of like, okay, is technology like helping us to keep our face and our humanity, or is technology taking over? And I can't talk to a real person, right? When you call customer service, like I just want to talk to a real person, and you can't ever get to, you're hitting all the different buttons. And so I think it's important that we look at the ways in which we can use technology to build community and improve that humanity side of what we do, as opposed to being seen as very sterile, robotic, cold practitioners.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And something that we hold really dear to our hearts at Motivity is we want to put the human behind the software. And I know our Mark, who's our community manager, he always says, foremost, we build community and we build technology. So I think that is such an interesting way to look at technology. It's here to help. It's not here to make us robotic or take over a function. It's supposed to be an assistant almost. Okay, Marty, I'm going to pass this question back to you. I think this is an interesting one. Future-proofing your practice. So we do know that the ABA field is ever changing. And staying ahead of things means that you're going to have to make decisions for now and thinking 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. What are some ways that you've thought ahead in general about future-proofing your practice? And then also in regards to technology and making sure you have things that will stand up as things continue to evolve?
Mm-hmm. Oh man, that's a great question. I mean, especially with everything that's happening right now, and a lot of the changes and impending changes that we are potentially seeing on the horizon. I'll be honest, there have been some worrisome conversations of, what is the future of Medicaid? What is the future of coverage? Because 98% of our clients are Medicaid. And so, we've talked a lot about, well, and let me just kind of backtrack. When I opened the clinic, one of the first things that I was taught by a mentor was you diversify your revenue from the very beginning. So, we contract with Head Start. So we provide social, emotional, and behavioral sessions. We don't call it, an ABA guided type of therapy session. It is just more of a more generalized type of support. So diversifying that way, I think, is really important as far as the future, because you don't know. Another thing is that the nonprofit that I started in 2021, the LEAP Institute, we have worked with, we did cohorts for supervision. We did free supervision cohorts. We have our supervisor's e-box, which is essentially kind of like a digital e-box where, supervising BCBAs get a monthly PowerPoint. They get links to videos and podcasts and other things where they can provide a better supervision experience for their supervisees, right? A more kind of well-rounded, and like, here you go, here it all is. You don't have to go look for it. And it extending through the task list and beyond the task list. So diversifying and preparing that way. And then also the LEAP Institute is preparing to open a nonprofit school. And so our goal is twofold, in that we're creating an alternative education system or opportunity for learners that really aren't doing well in the traditional school setting. And we're not just limited to those that have a diagnosis of autism, but we also want it to be like a learning site where supervisees, come and they get their supervision experience, almost like rotations, like if you were to do clinical rotations. So that is our goal. We do partner with Texas Tech with their OT interns. So when they're getting their capstone in their final semester of their doctorate program, they come to Lighthouse, they get to do their research, but then they're also learning really like, okay, ABA can look like this. So that's also that kind of interdisciplinary of like, look, like we can work together. We can have really good, positive professional relationships. So those are really the ways in which we're trying to prepare for an uncertain future. And, I would have said, 6 months ago, it probably wasn't quite as uncertain, but, really looking at how you can diversify your revenue. What are other ways that we can provide a service, still get paid to keep our doors open, and still make a meaningful difference? So that would kind of be, that's what we're looking at always, is what other avenues can we take?
That's great. And congrats on everything that your nonprofit's doing and has in store. It sounds really exciting.
Thank you. Thank you.
Lily and Susan, I'll pass it over to you. What are some things you think about for 5-10 years down the road?
We have a state goal of opening with school. We did it in Indianapolis for our last company, and it's now accredited. So we're like, we know we can do it. We're not there anymore, but it's okay. We'll do our own. So we do want to do that, which is really exciting. Honestly, we want to venture out of ABA. Like we want to have a boutique and design our own clothes and things like that. So very like outside the scope, just because it is our other like love of our lives. So yeah, that's
That's really cool.
We wear some fun and crazy stuff. So
yeah. It's amazing. And Amy, what about you?
Yeah, I think diversifying revenue is something we focus on quite a bit. And we have leveraged a program through the state, the Complex Behavior Collaborative, and are even working with other states to establish similar initiatives in their budgets. It's a very cool program that opens up your practice a little bit, even, so it gets you out of the autism box a little. And for those of us that really have worked with lots of different diagnoses, that's really fulfilling too. So I think finding ways to ensure there are different streams of revenue for the company. And then the other piece that I think touched on a little bit, but is really important to us when we're looking 5 years ahead, is relationships. And we're kind of providing tireless efforts in building relationships with any government officials in our state, working with other business owners out of state, developing relationships with people like Motivity or Aloha. And the more that we're engaging in those relationships and building a reputation for ourselves, the stronger we feel about, what the future looks like. You do have to be really considerate of, your advocacy efforts and not just staying kind of pigeonholed in what you're doing in the clinic. And I think that's a dangerous place to stay sitting for too long. But we have all these other unknowns. We can't predict staffing a year from now. Sometimes I can't predict staffing a week from now. And so I do have to be really, prepared that I'm always going to be able to make payroll and buy new crayons and do something that's fulfilling to myself as well. So yeah, just building relationships, focusing as much as possible on advocacy and helping guide our field, and standing in DC, whatever it takes, to making sure that we're protecting our consumers. And I think those efforts have to be considered outside of just what am I going to do in my specific clinic to make sure my doors stay open, but how do we together as a field across the world really make sure everyone's doors are staying open?
Yeah. That's really true. We're all kind of part of this big mission together, and we have to work together to keep it going. All right, I'm going to finish up with a question around lessons that you've learned. Lily and Susan, I'll start with you. In your past year or so of opening up a business and becoming ABA business owners, what is the biggest lesson learned, and what would you share with somebody else that might be in your same shoes?
Oh gosh.
There's so many things I've
There's
learned.
been so many. Um, I think a big one is trying to figure out who to invest in, I guess. Like within our company, who do we want coming in and starting? And if it's like a supervisee, what kind of qualities are we looking for? How long are we going to give to kind of see those qualities or growth within those qualities, and someone who also like matches with our values and our brand.
Mhm.
For me, I feel like what we're also learning is that at the end of the day, everything is on our shoulders. And that is a tough like pill to swallow because you know that that's the case, but when you feel it, it's a totally different feeling. So that piece and like not overworking ourselves because we are workaholics, just like anybody else that's, open their own center. And we know that we need to take a step back. We just don't know how to do that yet. So, we're waiting for that aha moment, but like learning how to take care of ourselves as much as we preach it to our team and our parents and our kids and everything, like we also need to remind ourselves. So, we're trying to do a lot with each other to keep each other accountable to take care of ourselves.
I feel that. If you find something new, let me know because I'm always trying to.
Boxing.
Yeah, we've been doing boxing,
And that's been
fitness
great.
classes.
Ooh, that's cool.
Yeah, those have been really good.
That's awesome. All right, Madi, I'll pass it to you. What is your biggest lesson learned?
Oh gosh. I would say that the biggest lesson is, I don't know that I can narrow it down. There's just so many. Like I think I learn a lesson every single day. Um, gosh. Probably that if I don't, I have to model every single day what I need, and hope for my staff to then, embody in their sessions with each other. And so I think the biggest lesson is just realizing that, and I think this is something as a field we're still kind of struggling with, is that we forget that when we enter the room, we're probably one of the most impactful stimuli that is now present in someone else's environment. And we look at every other stimuli, every other variable, like, why is this learner doing this? Why is my staff doing this? And not stepping back and being like, oh, I stepped in the room. Oh, okay, like it's me, I'm the problem. So I think just engaging in self-reflection, like making sure that I can do that and communicate that with my team. Like when I'm human and make an error, being able to model what that looks like when you say, hey, I messed up. Guess what? It happens. We all do it. And continuing to create that space of safety and empowerment where people want to think critically, where they're not just like, oh, I'm just going to follow this plan without, thinking a single thought about it, where I'm like, hey, think about it. What could we do instead? Where it's a safe space for people to grow. So that's been a really big lesson for me, is knowing, that people are watching, and it's not just like how good you are, like come watch me be awesome as the owner, but like how well and how humble you are when you're human and you make those mistakes. Because then you see staff that are able to do that and be accountable and say, hey, I messed up and I did this. It's like, cool, like we can fix it now because I'm not finding out about it 2 weeks later. So that's been one of many big lessons for me.
Yeah, that's great. It's very insightful. All right, and Amy, finish it up for us.
Yeah. Again, this took a lot of narrowing down. this feels really simple, but I went to the CASP Leadership Conference in September, and there was a speaker who said to all of you business owners, get out of the weeds. And that resonated so much with me. And I realized that for my own quality of life, I need my nose to be way above water, not just barely above water. And that I, stayed just above water for a lot of years until I finally told myself to get out of the weeds. And my practice runs smoother. I have a higher quality of life for myself. I have more time with my own family. And that just makes me a better business owner and a better clinician. So I think, I've had to learn how to get myself out of the weeds and know that being in the weeds doesn't mean that you're doing your best job. It just means that you're drowning. And, find the things that you need to stay out of the weeds so that you can, do better by everyone in your life, the community, your own family, the staff that you have, the clients you serve, their families, and just taking baby steps to just dig your way out.
Yep. I remember them saying that at CASP Leadership Summit because that resonated so much with me too. And I think a lot of us, especially if we move into these positions as business leaders, it's because we tend to be in control of a lot and we tend to take on a lot. So it's hard to learn to let go and designate to other people and,
Yes.
So, yeah. Well, thank you all so much for spending time with us today. I really enjoyed this conversation. I hope that everyone else did too. And have a really wonderful holiday season. And I look forward to catching up with all of you again soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.